Defunding the police was an obvious mistake, and most of us know this. For those of you that watch my content, you probably know this. I'm only hoping that stories like this will help people realize why defund the police is wrong. If anything, we need more funding for proper training. New York is being turned into a shooting gallery as 3 are killed and 12 are injured in shootings in just one night, as cops release horrifying footage of broad daylight drive-by that killed an 18-year-old. And the weekend is just about to start. Bill de Blasio is using taxpayer money to paint messages, political slogans. He's using the police to protect a painting. Let me just stress that point for those who may have missed it if you don't watch all of my videos. They used 27 NYPD to guard de Blasio's painting, for which he illegally took taxpayer money to paint on the street. And I want to show you something personal. A more personal story, I should say. Husband is left paralyzed after being hit by stray bullet when he insisted on walking to the store with his new wife to hold her umbrella in gentrified Brooklyn as gun violence in NYC spirals out of control. I'll give you a warning on this story, man. This one's nightmarish. And I actually I saw this story. I started doing general research, and I found I actually have mutual friends with the individual. Walking to the store to buy toothpaste, a normal day in Brooklyn. We wanted to hold the umbrella for his wife. And then someone pulled up, was trying to kill someone else, and he got hit with a stray bullet. And all of a sudden, he couldn't feel his legs. I think about these stories, where there's that one moment where you could have made a different decision. Apparently, his wife said, "You don't need to come with me. I'm just going to buy toothpaste." And he said, "No, I'll come. I'll hold the umbrella for you." If he just said, okay, he would still be walking. He wouldn't have been lying on the ground in a pool of his own blood. It's a horrifying story. But this is a perfect example of why you need to either get out of these cities or vote out people like Bill de Blasio, a man who is giving his wife a $2 million staff from the New York City coffers and threatening to fire emergency medical service. Think about it. What happens when he lays off 10% of the EMTs? They wouldn't be here for a person like this. But worse still, New York got rid of their 600 officer anti-crime unit. Maybe they could have stopped this from happening. I'm going to read you this story. And I want to talk about what's going on with de Blasio, New York, and Trump. You see, Trump has offered to send in the National Guard and feds over and over again. He's now offering Portland assistance if they only ask. But these Democrats, they won't. So I'll tell you what, if these people will not be voting out the likes of de Blasio, Cuomo, and these other Democrats, then you need to leave these cities and let this story be a warning. Now, to be fair, I want to make sure I highlight stories like this probably happen all the time. And while shootings are up significantly and so is crime and these cities are crumbling, I don't want to overhype this. Look, it's possible that there are stories like this in every major city we just don't pay attention to. And we're only focused on it now because of the crisis. But suffice it to say, there is a crisis in New York City. And perhaps this could have been prevented. The increase in shootings absolutely could be prevented. And so saith the activists who actually live in the black communities of New York, who are saying, give us back our police. But the white progressive racists, these white fragility racists, are saying, no, we don't want you to have police. And this is what happens. The Daily Mail says, an innocent bystander who was shot in broad daylight in Brooklyn on Wednesday will likely never walk again after a bullet struck his spine while he walked with his wife to buy toothpaste from a nearby store. Such an innocuous thing to do. Such irrelevant. He wasn't going on some grand journey. He wasn't running through a battlefield to save a child. He wasn't storming into a burning building. No, he was going out for toothpaste. And this is de Blasio's New York. The tragic shooting is one of several incidents of gun violence in New York City, where homicides surged by 29% to 244 from January 1st to August 2nd from the same period last year. The 5 boroughs have also seen an 84.6% rise in shooting victims to 1,017 during those dates compared with the same period in 2019, according to the Wall Street Journal. Sam Metcalf, 33, survived the shooting while an 18-year-old man, Malcolm Amide, died near the intersection of Ocean and Woodruff Avenues in Flatbush, just south of Prospect Park. Amide, a suspected gang member, was believed to be the shooter's intended target. A GoFundMe account started to help Metcalf and his wife Sabrina describe how the tragic events unfolded. Let me tell you something. I've got the GoFundMe pulled up. And there was one comment in there that I started to read, and I thought to myself, this person gets it, and then all of a sudden they do a 180. They were ragging on the mayor and saying he's terrible, and this city has been gentrified. And wait, what? Are you kidding me? Are you nuts? The gentrification is not what's causing the shootings. That's insane. These people just don't get it, do they? Let this story be a warning. Man, I mean it. My heart goes out to this newly married couple and this dude. I would not wish something like that on my worst enemies. This guy may very well be paralyzed for the rest of his life. But there are still people stupid enough to think that the problem is this dumb far left. No. It was the defunding of the police which led to this. Here's a photo. NYPD released this shocking footage from the shooting on Wednesday. They say on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, Sabrina and her husband Sam left their Brooklyn apartment to go to the store and get some toothpaste. The organizer of the crowdfunding effort, Krista Zargowski, wrote, she told him he didn't need to come, but he wanted to hold the umbrella for her because it was raining and the umbrella was broken. While crossing an intersection less than 5 minutes from their building, shots rang out and Sam was hit. The intended victim was not Sam. The intended victim, not Sam, was also shot multiple times and died as a result. Zagorski continued, almost immediately, Sam couldn't feel his legs. We now know that the bullet hit his kidney and stopped when it hit his spine. They removed his kidney, but his condition is too fragile to attempt to remove the bullet just yet. Doctors are still trying to stop the bleeding, and Sam will likely never walk again. This is just a guy walking down the street. I know it's extremely rare, but it could be you. This is why we have police patrolling neighborhoods. It's why we have police arrest criminals. It's why we put them in jail to stop them from doing it again. Now, I, for one, am more of a fan of rehabilitative justice, not punitive, meaning we've got to take these people off the street, for one, to stop the crimes, and two, to make sure it doesn't happen again by rehabilitating them. Sometimes it doesn't work. That's true. But releasing people from prisons, defunding the police, amazing. It's the exact opposite of what we need. Here's a photo of the actual victim, and I feel for this guy too. I don't want to see anybody lose their life. I don't care if they're a suspected gang member. This guy died, and this is Bill de Blasio's New York. He stripped $1 billion from the police. He took away the anti-crime unit. Activists in these communities are begging for them back. 5 people have been shot near the intersection in the last week, according to Zagorski. 3 of those who have been shot were killed. Sam and Sabrina have a long road ahead of them, she writes. Medical expenses will come later, but right now I need help supporting them in any way possible. Neither are working, as Sam fights for his life and she keeps vigil over him. The good news is their GoFundMe has raised a ton of money, but I'll tell you, not everybody has the means to actually escape New York. And some people don't like it when I say New York is going to devolve into chaos and it's going to be like Escape from New York. They don't like it. It's not meant to be a literal statement. It's meant to be an exaggerated statement to make a point. This is the point. Now you have a dude who died, an 18-year-old died, shot in broad daylight, and another man is now paralyzed. Now I got more stories, man. This is not the only one. New York City is seeing a surge in shootings because they took the cops away. And it's obvious. It should be obvious to anybody. They say, neither are working as Sam fights for his life. I know I read that, but the point is, yes, Bill de Blasio has shut this city down. And now they don't have the money they need to actually pay for this. They need help. I'm glad they're getting the help they need. His journey to recovery will be long, and during that time, I don't want either of them to have to worry about anything else. And I agree 100%. The GoFundMe campaign has exceeded its goal of $40,000 as of early Saturday, raising $42,150. I believe it's a little bit more than that. Thank you, Zagorski wrote. I cannot tell you how much your support means. It's a testament to how loved Sam and Sabrina are and how truly incredible people can be. Amide was fatally shot in the chest and arms, according to the New York Post. Law enforcement sources believe he is a member of the Crips and that the shooting was related to gang warfare. Surveillance footage released from the scene on Friday shows an unidentified gunman aiming a gun from the driver's seat of the BMW SUV just before 3:30 p.m. Now, I know the framing of this is about the man who was the innocent bystander who was paralyzed because of this. And there's a reason why I focus on that framing, but I will absolutely say this story is also about this 18-year-old who was gunned down in broad daylight. 100%. That could be any one of us as well. But to be fair, a suspected gang member and the target of a hit is very different from an innocent bystander. Both of these instances are extreme tragedies. Both of them should be the focus of this. And I will not impugn the honor of this man who lost his life under the suspicion he was in a gang. But I highlight the innocent bystander purposefully to say it could be you doing nothing, minding your own business, walking down the street, and someone just starts firing a weapon. Now you're paralyzed for the rest of your life, or worse, dead. And it could be your loved ones. They post a bunch of photos of them together. They say video from the scene shows the aftermath of the shooting. Bystanders are seen tending to Metcalf and assuring him he was going to be okay. Cops found a gun at the scene that may have been dropped by one of the victims. This neighborhood is becoming a shooting gallery. Why won't it stop? One resident asked AM New York. It comes as the city endures a summer of soaring violent crime, heat waves, high unemployment, and the grinding misery of social distancing restrictions have all contributed to an atmosphere in which tempers spin out of control and verbal disputes between strangers often turn violent. Well, this guy was just walking down the street, but I want to show you something that offended me. Over at the GoFundMe, they've raised $45,166 of a $40,000 goal. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. I really do wish these people the best. And I'm really, really upset at even the 18-year-old, especially the 18-year-old losing his life. Man, I oppose the death penalty. I don't want to see anybody getting hurt. I want to see us finding a solution to these problems. But the problem isn't this ridiculous bail reform they started. Before all this COVID stuff, bail reform, we're just going to release people. They go out and they commit crimes over and over and over again. I say it all the time. I'm pro-freedom. Freedom over security, which means if somebody is arrested, then they have a right to be free unless you can prove it. And so that was the idea. But I don't think just ending it overnight was the solution. I believe a trial period was warranted. And then they found recidivism. Many of these people were just getting out and they were going and committing crimes again. And following this, it is shocking to me that they would then go and defund the police. It's all just one big game to them. They want power and they will sacrifice you to get it. Well, I want to show you some of these comments. Here's one. Let me just read this. I'm another Sam, 33 from NYC, but now I'm in Tokyo and browsing Facebook. And I see another Sam still in my city getting randomly shot just for wanting to walk somewhere with his wife. The city has changed so much since the last time I was there. The mayor is an effing idiot. And the whole city has been gentrified to no return? What? What is that? Why are you complaining about that? They insist on pushing. Many of these people will just not let go of the narrative. It's not a big donation, but I want you to know that I don't know you and never met you, but I love you, dude. Remember, it's like this. Insert favorite role model once said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. You still have your whole life to lead, and at least you still have your senses, a beautiful, loving wife, and the love and support from people all over the world rooting for you. This is not the end, only the beginning. Stay tough, yo. You got this. I appreciate the positive message, 100%. I'm not trying to drag this individual who's trying to be helpful, giving this donation. But you're right. The mayor is an effing idiot. But what does the city being gentrified have to do with this? This is part of the problem, in my opinion. Bill de Blasio has no plan for a return to indoor dining. He has defunded the police. He is locking the city down. He will not let people lead normal lives, and people are suffering under this. So yes, the mayor is an effing idiot. But gentrification is not a bad thing. It is not necessary. It is not all good. It does drive many people out of their communities. I get it. But businesses coming in and bringing in new jobs and revitalizing a neighborhood is not a bad thing. What's the alternative? Decaying streets, collapsing buildings, and violent crime? I guess so. Look, man, Trump has repeatedly offered to send in feds to end all of this, and they won't accept it. Think about this. You want to defund the police? Maybe you can't afford the police? Take the federal officers. Trump has offered it up. Chicago says no. New York says no. Portland says no. 86 consecutive nights of unrest. And now the feds are back out on the streets of Portland. The story about this individual being paralyzed is not the only one. They actually have another article here in the Daily Mail. It talks about essentially the same story, but it gives us a play-by-play of some of these other shootings. This is crazy. Look at this. They say, let me actually give you some context. I don't even know what the first story there. Wow. There's just too many of these. 3 people are dead and 12 wounded after a night of shooting mayhem across New York City, where crime surges out of control. Overnight Thursday into Friday morning, there were at least 11 separate shooting incidents spanning Brooklyn and the Bronx, where terrified residents have seen soaring violence. It follows the release of surveillance footage, this we know about, I just mentioned. They say 2 other fatal shootings took place at East Tremont Avenue, neighborhood of the Bronx, a few hours apart. At around 2 a.m., a gunman opened fire in an apparent drive-by, striking 3 victims, killing one of them. The deceased victim, a 60-year-old man, was shot in the torso and pronounced dead. At St. Barnabas Hospital, 2 others, 36 and 54, hospitalized in stable condition. Then just 2 hours later, at 4:20 a.m., a 44-year-old man was fatally shot in the back of the head. Wow. As well, shortly before noon on Friday, an innocent bystander was shot and wounded in the ankle while she was sitting inside a Brooklyn nail salon. Incredible. I mean, not in a good way. It's just insane. The 68-year-old woman was in the salon on Pitkin Avenue when shots rang out. She was taken to the hospital. Suspects, described as 2 men wearing all black and face masks, fled the scene and are still at large. The other non-fatal shootings across the city. Brooklyn, 10:49 a.m., confirmed shots. Brooklyn, 12:33 a.m., confirmed shots. Brooklyn, 12:56, 1 shot, female victim. Brooklyn, 1:15 a.m., 2 shot, 52-year-old man in the arm. 23-year-old woman. 1:55 a.m. in the Bronx, 2 shot. Bronx, 2:28 a.m., confirmed shots fired. Brooklyn, 3:15, 1 shot. Brooklyn, 3:30, 1 shot. It goes on and on and on. I wonder, man. Look at this chart. In 2019, there were 776 shootings. In 2015, there were 1,138 for the total year. 2020 so far surpasses the past 3 years and is on track to be the worst we have seen in a very long time. Who in their right mind would decide now is the time to get rid of your anti-crime unit? Somebody who doesn't care or is lying. You see, New York City is facing a major budget shortfall, and that's why I highlighted Bill de Blasio having no plan for indoor dining. I know it may seem like they're unrelated, but the fact is, they have no money. There are no tourists. The tax base is being eroded, and it's because of people like Bill de Blasio who get elected, don't know how to run the city, and don't care about what happens to it. I understand it's potentially a rock and a hard place with COVID, but I think if he paid attention and actually tracked the numbers, he could do a good job. And I think the fact that his wife has a $2 million staff, one person filming her bake cookies, I think that proves he has no good intentions. He is just milking the system and watching people take the brunt of the chaos. There's a lot of articles. There was one article that said New York City is dead. I read it a couple days ago, talking about how the city will not come back from this. A bunch of leftists started sharing this meme. It was a tweet from some guy, some leftist, who said, New York City's not dead. It's only dead to the rich people who can't have underpaid labor serve their every whim. And they're all clapping and saying, woo, yeah, you tell them, you know what's up. That's right. No, it's dead for these people too. You know why? Because now a man likely will never walk again. So is it any reason? Is it any surprise that the rich people or the people of means fled when they did? Look, you don't have to be rich to get out of the city. In my opinion, I would rather be sleeping on a park bench than living in New York, especially after we're seeing all this. Now, I get it. Look, 827 shootings to the millions of people who are still there. I mean, it's millions upon millions for sure. It's not like it's great odds it'll happen to you, but it's a lottery ticket that you can buy. Instead of being rich, you can't walk anymore. I get it. You always have that potential in a place like New York City. But it's getting worse. It's a 30% increase in the likelihood of happening. And at a certain point, I think it's just time to get out, not just because of the shootings, but because businesses are being shut down, because there's no jobs, because they have this mandatory quarantine, because they have, $10,000 fines, because there's checkpoints at the borders, because the city is devolving into chaos, and your leader is a moron. The guy running the city is an absolute moron. If it were me, I'd just get up and leave. I lived in Chicago. This was maybe like 11 years ago. And I had no plan. I just said, I'm getting out of this city. Now, this was more about just boredom, I guess. I found an ad on Craigslist. They said, I need some help driving a car to San Diego from Chicago. And I said, I'll drive it. I had very little money. I ended up in Los Angeles with no plan, very little cash, and just a backpack. I had no idea where I was going to go. And I was lucky enough to not actually spend a single night outside. Met some crazy hippies. They helped me out, and I was lucky. I was lucky, for sure. But I was willing to just pack up and leave. If I was facing an actual threat like this, if I was still in New York, I'd just pack up and go. I'd stay in my car. I would do whatever. That's just me. Some people have families. But I look at the story of the guy who's paralyzed, and he's a younger guy, with his wife, and he chose to stay. And I wonder, it's one of these stories where this is more of a philosophical thing, issue, where there's that one moment, that fork in the road, and you don't know what lies ahead, and you don't realize that one moment. I've been skateboarding, and this is why I think about this. And I'll go for a trick, and I'll sprain my ankle. It rarely ever happens where you get a sprained ankle. Most skateboarders know how to fall, but sometimes it does. And then I sit there thinking, if I just waited literally 2 seconds before trying this, would that have changed everything before me? Imagine this man in his apartment, and his wife said, you don't have to come buy the toothpaste with me. And he says, I'll hold the umbrella for you. If he just took 1 extra second to reconsider, the bullet may have not hit his spine. Isn't that crazy? And I'm just bringing this up because you could go back way further to when the city was heading into chaos. And now you in New York City or anywhere else, or any one of these cities, LA or SF, and you have a choice right now. You can leave. And if you don't, I believe there is a higher likelihood of risk, especially going into the election. I don't think that the next few months are going to be pleasant for people in cities. And that's why a lot of my friends are getting out. And that's why we're seeing stories like this. Mind you, I will stress the point. There are millions in New York that are doing just fine. I mean, relatively fine. Relatively fine. Still extreme social distancing, masks. People are not happy with what's going on. And it's a pressure cooker on the verge of exploding. You have the choice to go somewhere else. It may not be easy or comfortable, but man, if it were me, I would totally do it. I saw this story about this guy getting paralyzed, and I was like, that is, just a nightmare scenario. He could have just gotten on a bus and left with his wife to go somewhere safe. It's sad, man. I wish them the best. I really, really do. I really, really do. I wish everyone safety. The dude who died, especially him. I'm sad to hear that he lost his life. I don't care if he's in a gang. I don't care if they suspect him of a crime. You prove it to me and we'll have some consideration. Like, listen, if you're in a gang and you're engaging in violence and someone comes after you, you have some responsibility here. But I'm not going to play that game. That dude should not have been killed. All the same. I understand there's probably a bias here, but I highlight the guy getting paralyzed because he's going to live with this for the rest of his life. And, the other guy, he's gone, his family's going to suffer, endlessly through this. But I guess the bias comes from the fact that the dude who's paralyzed is deemed an innocent bystander. And that's kind of the shocking idea here, that you could be minding your own business one day in New York and then you'll never walk again. Maybe New York is fine. Maybe it's all exaggerated. I don't know. But if it were me, I'd leave. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.